Hey, CompGovers. So we are on our last topic. There will be one other video that I'm going to deal with that covers something in this PowerPoint that deals with, of course, sovereignty. All right. So today's topic is source of power. What is a country's source of power? So remember, source of power and sovereignty are essentially the same thing. So sources of power and authority include, so these are sources in our various countries. It could be the Constitution. It could be the religion, military, political parties like a dominant party, legislatures. Maybe there's a particularly strong legislature, popular support. And over time, these our six countries have been affected by these sources of authority and power. So I'm going to give you real quick examples so that you kind of see what I'm talking about. The source of power in China is the Chinese Communist Party. And one of the sources of the CCP's power is the Chinese military. It does have control over the Chinese military. Um, and it leads to and provides a level of stability within China. And then there is Islam in Iran. So the transition of power from a dictatorial rule, remember under the Shah, in Iran to a theocratic based system that includes Sharia law after the revolution of 1979. And then Nigeria. Nigeria is in transition, so is Mexico. Mexico may be further along than Nigeria, but Nigeria transitioned um, to multi-party republics, right? Meaning that there are multiple parties now, no longer the one dominant party. It's got multiple party republics following military rule. And in Mexico, Mexico is transitioning to a multi-party republic following a single party dominance. And then there's Russia. The political elite's backing of a strong president in Russia, creating a managed democracy with election rules favoring one party. So in this case, the political elite uh, is essentially Putin. So, um, United Russia. And then we have the UK. So I know they don't have a written constitution, but they have a constitution nonetheless. And so constitutional reforms within the UK have devolved power to multiple parliaments. Remember the Scottish Parliament and the Welsh Parliament, and this has allowed a level of stability. All right, so how a regime chooses to use power in support of sovereignty is determined in large part by what kind of regime it has. If it's a democratic regime, they usually can maintain sovereignty using less power than authoritarian regimes. Changes in regimes occur when rules and institutions are replaced, either slowly over time, incrementally, or like a coup, a sudden change. It can also be as a result of elections, revolutions, in which a large portion of the population supports the change in a political system, kind of like how Iran went through that change in 1979. Governments, including political office holders, can be changed more frequently and easily than regimes. So regimes generally are harder to change because it's either a democracy or an authoritarian. But governments do change within that regime. So you can go from, the Theresa May government to the Boris Johnson government, but it's still a democratic regime. So, governments, including political office holders, these are presidents or any kind of other elected official, can be changed more frequently and easily than regimes through the relatively peaceful process of elections, appointments, lines of succession. However, governments also change more violent means, such as revolutions, coups, such as in Iran and Nigeria. Oops, wrong button. All right, so let's start with our case studies. So in the UK, like we said before, constitutional reforms in the UK that devolved power to multiple parliaments, allowing for the regime to maintain stability. So the source of the UK's power is in its constitutional reforms. I know they don't have any written constitution. People often refer to the UK having an unwritten constitution, but that's not strictly true. It may not exist in a single text, like in the US, but large parts of it are written down. Much of it in the laws passed in Parliament, and this is known as statute law. Therefore, the UK's constitution is often described as partly written and wholly uncodified. So, uncodified means that the UK doesn't have a single written constitution, right? But they have a constitution. As a matter of fact, constitutionalism, which is the adherence to a set of understood limitations on the power of the state, right? That is, they have a strong constitutionalism, and that is the source of the UK's power. The Constitution has evolved over time, so gradualism, right, and has been added and continues to be a living, breathing document, or documents, right? It's flexible. That's why they have rooted sovereignty in their constitution. Another is common law. You know, they have rule of law, and so their common law is a legal system based on local customs and precedent rather than formal legal code. They do have legal code. I mean, they do have statute law, but a lot of it is also local customs and traditions. Okay, let's go to Russia. The source of Russia's power is basically in the executive branch under Putin. It was intended to be the Constitution of 1993, which essentially created a democratic state. But over time, we have seen that it has become rooted in the executive branch. So Yeltsin did create a Western style democracy in the Constitution of 1993, and constitutional power of the president is checked by popular election, even though we've seen that erode. The 2000, the 2012 election, you know, we see that Putin has extended his term limits from 4 years to 6 years. And so, again, we're seeing Putin kind of erode constitutionalism. The institution of the presidency only dates to the 1991 revolution, in which the Soviet Union collapsed and out of its ashes rose Russia. The Duma has actually has existed before the 1991 revolution. So the intent was for the Duma to actually have the most power, but as we know now, it is a rubber stamp legislature. And Yeltsin did attempt to strengthen the Constitution's legitimacy by putting it before a referendum in 1993. All right, but Putin, as we have seen, has changed things. So when Yeltsin resigned in 2000, Prime Minister Vladimir Putin became the acting president, and people looked at Putin favorably because they saw him as a more conservative leader, which means that he could potentially bring about a little more stability. Putin has retreated significantly from the commitments that Yeltsin has made to the establishment of a democratic system. And although Putin did step down as president at the end of his second term in 2008, he remained as prime minister and then came back in 2012. And as we know, he has also eroded the power of the Duma using a dominant party system, United Russia, and has started to present constitutional reforms in 2020 that would essentially give him another set of terms in office that he is also putting before a referendum. All right, let's go to China. So the source of power in China, of course, is the CCP. And the CCP has control of the Chinese military, which gives the CCP a level of stability and, of course, legitimacy. So the current constitution was adopted on December 4th, 1982. This new constitution de-emphasized class struggle. Remember when Mao took control in 1949, they wrote a constitution that was very idealistically communistic under Mao, but the new constitution has de-emphasized all of those idealistic communist beliefs. China is described as a socialist state under the people's democratic dictatorship. The Constitution guarantees rights to free speech, press, assembly, demonstration, but are superficial and easily trumped by the need of the CCP. All right. So the Constitution for the CCP was also there are two essential constitutions. One's for the PRC and one for the CCP. PRC meaning the People's Republic of China. CCP meaning the Chinese Communist Party. All right, in Mexico. So the source of Mexico's power lies in the fact that it is becoming a democracy. It's in transition, and it's having a lot of degree of success in its transition of power to multi-party republic, meaning that there are multiple parties, not just the PRI or the PRI anymore. They have the PAN, the PRD, and now more recently the Morena Party, following a single party dominance of the PRI. So, other sources of power are because it is transitioning into a democracy, is the Constitution, 1917 Constitution. It's long lasting, right? And it gives it a degree of stability, legitimacy, and therefore a source of power. Gradualism, that this has happened over a course of time and it has gradually been changed and added and matured to as it transitions to a democracy. Used to be the power was in that single party dominance, the PRI, but now we are seeing democratization, right? So another source of Mexico's power is the fact that it is democratizing. All right. The 1917 Constitution came out of the Mexican Revolution. It's still used. In the Constitution, some of the things they talk about is anti-clerical, meaning anti-religious, anti-Catholic Church, land reforms, and all subsoil mineral rights belonging to the nation, right? Limits on foreign rights to own land and resources. Remember, this is the source of why the Zapatistas were so upset with NAFTA. Um, Protection of workers, including collective bargaining rights and strikes. The 1917 Constitution is still in effect. But it does not have the same level of legitimacy as the U.S. Constitution because it is still transitioning. Also, realize that it struggles a little bit with its drug cartels. Um, so the way the Mexican Constitution is written, it appears to give a lot of power to the legislative branch, but in actuality, the president does hold the most power in government. Remember, he can issue decrees that have the force of law, right? Even though he's only in office for 6 years, the Sexentia. All right, Nigeria. Nigeria is also transitioning um, following military rule, but it's not having the same degree of success that we see Mexico have. They have a relatively new constitution, much like Russia. This one was in 1999. It is weak, and it has been heavily amended. Um, let's see. The constitutionalism that is so strong in the UK has eluded Nigeria, right? So because it's weak and heavily amended, and then over its history, they've had many, many, many constitutions, all of which the military and civilian leaders have disobeyed, and so of course part of its uh, its lack of any source of power brings us to the point of Nigeria's national question: should they remain a singular nation? All right, Iran. So Iran is also a transitional power, going from a dictatorship to a theocracy. And so this is our only wholly theocratic state among our six. Nigeria is, like I said, with that national question, only the northern part has some Sharia law, but Iran is a theocracy based on Islamic Sharia law. So in 1979, of course, was the revolution that overthrew the Shah and brought about the supreme leader, the Ayatollah. The Ayatollah did put the 1979 constitution before a national referendum. And the Iranian people voted to oust the Shah, the monarchy, and establish a theocratic state. Um, it does have elements of democratic characteristics in Iran, but it is largely theocratic. The Constitution was amended significantly in 1989 when the first Ayatollah died. And so the amendments were pretty substantial. It eliminated the need for the leader to be chosen uh, by popularity, right? It's now going to be chosen by the Council of Religious. I'm sorry. It's made permit the Expediency Council, which is the go-between the Majlis and the Assembly of Religious Experts. It eliminated the prime ministership. The Constitution also mandates that a small recognized religious minority does have reserved seats in Parliament. Christians, Jews, and Zoroastrians have a total of 5 reserved seats in the Majlis. This qualification also means that non-recognized religious minorities, like the Baha'i, can neither be represented in Parliament nor enjoy any kind of rights uh, to become president. Alrighty, so that ends this. We will have one more video that we will go over tomorrow. Stay safe.